está pasando es de lo más normal. Cuando uno se convierte en mamá, siente que se está partiendo en dos. Y espérate al parto. Literal, sientes que se te parten los huesos.
Huesera, the Bone Woman. Another week and another blah time for theaters. Thankfully, that's changing shortly. So in the meantime, I went to Shudder and decided to check out this Spanish film I had passed on previously, but I've kept hearing fantastic things about. It has amazing reviews, and it's the director's first film, so I figured, why not? Let's see how this goes. Who knows, maybe it'd be as good as When Evil Lurks. Check out my review for that over here. And I'm happy I did check this out, although I did finish feeling a little underwhelmed than what I was detailed with, given the film's summary. But for the movie's credit, it really made me think once the credits started rolling. Huesera the Bone Woman follows a young woman named Valeria, who just became pregnant for the first time with her husband. With all the stress that comes with pregnancy, she witnesses a brutal accident and discovers she may be cursed by a sinister entity that threatens to tear apart her mind, her relationships, and the life of her child. It is a great setup for a monster movie, and while La Huesera herself isn't seen too often, the stress and overbearing presence she has over Valeria is absolutely frightening to see. Coming out of Mexico and Peru, this film is another example of a metaphor monster. I should really make a graphic for those because there's so many of these. It's just so easy to do. This time though, the metaphor is for something rather unique, being perinatal depression, or the depression that occurs during pregnancy, which is prenatal depression, and the depression that occurs after childbirth, being postpartum. I have seen plenty of movies and shows that tackle postpartum depression in very unique and interesting ways, but this one is different and definitely unique in how it handles the depression throughout a pregnancy, not just at the end. It's a slow character study showing Valeria's beginning happiness at getting pregnant slowly morph and turn to anxiety, fear, and aggravation as she discovers more and more about herself, including a potential female love interest from her past. The film uses this quote-unquote curse to explore a fractured mind as Valeria has to question why she got pregnant, if she even wants a child, and what she ultimately wants from her life. All done with a variety of gross bone cracks and wild stress and panic attacks that nobody believes are from a real creature. The ending of the film is especially good too, teetering on the edge of being neither happy nor sad nor even bittersweet. It's its own entirely separate thing. It's a very strange ending that really leaves you thinking about Valeria's ultimate decision and ending mental position. Valeria is played amazingly well by, I hope I pronounce this correctly. I hope I pronounce all these names correctly, but they're all Spanish, so I'm not entirely sure if I'm doing this right or wrong. I apologize if I'm wrong. But she's played by Natalia Solian, who really brings the unease and anxiety and self-hatred in a ton of moments. It's an incredibly strong performance. She seems to be relatively early in her career, so I can't wait to see where she goes from here. It's really damn good. Her husband Raul is played by Alfonso Dosel, who does put in a decent performance. I just don't think he was given very much to do. He's a side character at best. He helps support everything, but he's not the focus. The character is kind of meh and at a couple of points outright annoying and frustrating to deal with, but I think that's kind of the point of the writing given the larger context. Plus, it's a good excuse to better fit Valeria's headspace. Valeria's past potential love interest, though, is Octavia, played by Mayra Batalla, who plays her as a perfect foil to Raul, but still with her own flaws. It's easy to see how the attraction between the two and see how Valeria could feel she was missing out on Octavia's rock and roll life, but at the same time, Octavia is kind, supportive, and speaks her mind, and Batalla handles it perfectly. She's been in a few Mexican projects for the past decade, but I hope to see her in more mainstream stuff soon. The acting overall in this film is extremely solid, except maybe from the few child actors who just seem too cruel to prove a point, but that cruelty feels forced. They're barely in the film, so that's more of a nitpick than anything else. I do also have to commend the film for using a real figure from native folklore as well. I love when that's the case. La Huesera is a real Mexican tale about a ghostly woman who wanders the desert collecting discarded bones, which I guess is a thing you can find in the desert. Her favorite being wolf bones, which also earns her the name of La Loba as well. There's a few other names, but those are the main two that I've found doing research into her. The story goes that once she has collected a full skeleton, it says that she performs a ritual and sings to the bones, breathing life into them and transforming the skeleton into a woman who will then dance away into the horizon to lead her own life, I guess. It's an interesting story that at first glance doesn't have anything to do with this film's monster, aside from some scenes of bones breaking and snapping, or Valeria's habit of cracking her fingers and other things involving bone, which happens a lot in this movie. But if you focus a little deeper, you'll see hints that the folklore is about Huesera helping women to find themselves and attain self-actuation, which fits the film's themes to a T. It is remarkably in-depth and smart writing. The whole film is actually written really well, aside from a couple moments that I don't really like. Like I said before, I think the children seem a bit too cruel in one scene, and Raul is way too dismissive the longer the film goes on. I feel like he definitely needed to be explored a little bit more, but again, this is Valeria's story, not his. But I feel like a little focus into how he's feeling and coping and how it could be, ooh, this is healthy, this is not, would have been a smart direction to go to as well. The cinematography is also pretty mid at some points, but then really creative in others, like an overhead shot where a woman drags herself across the floor in a corner, out of frame. That's pretty cool. And the ending sequence is so cool and artistic and just done really, really well, even if the effects don't always hold up. And yet you also have some weird B-roll transitional footage that is like 10 seconds of Valeria walking between locations. Those definitely felt unneeded and had me questioning why they were even there. To be fair, this is also the directorial debut of Michelle Garza Cervera, who also wrote the movie, which is a huge accomplishment, props to her. I think it's a very strong debut, despite those scenes admittedly feeling very much like something a newbie would put in. Oh geez, I sound really snobby saying that out loud. But seriously, it's really odd when you have a random, extremely short scene where Valeria walks across a bridge and nothing happens before she gets to her next location. Just cut to the location, we know she's moving. We don't need to see her cross a random bridge looking sad. In all seriousness though, Huesera is a really intriguing and complicated film that seeks to tackle a very complicated and difficult subject matter in a rather abstract way that I feel definitely succeeded and requires, I'm not going to go out of the way and say multiple viewings to fully understand it, but this is definitely something that I can see sitting down and having a discussion and getting various points of view on. There's definitely a moral and a plot and a specific message in this movie, but it's still loose enough to be open to interpretation based on who's watching it and who has their own personal experiences with maybe something similar, maybe not with child rearing in general, but people questioning who they really are and what they really want out of life. The nitpicks are a little heavy, but overall it doesn't detract me from wanting to see a lot more from this director. I can't wait to see what she does next. As for this film, I do highly recommend it if you're looking for a new character study with some creepy visuals and sounds, but one that doesn't pervade through the entire film. There's a lot of instances where characters are just talking to each other, and then the creepy stuff starts to creep in, but just a whole lot of Valeria in situations where she's clearly uncomfortable, talking to people who don't seem to realize that, and other ones that they do realize that, but they don't mention it. It's a lot of nuance. If you like a dark, unhappy story that you have to pay attention to, you'll like this one. You'll be paying attention to it anyway if you don't speak Spanish, since I don't think this film has been dubbed yet. I don't think it's going to be dubbed, but it's still very, very good if you're into that. It does have the nitpicks and the detractions, but overall I think it's extremely solid. Ultimately though, Huesera the Bone Woman gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for another one. Thankfully, more movies are coming out in March, and I am so ready to get back into theaters. I don't think I've seen an entire movie in theaters in February, which is kind of baffling, but there really just wasn't anything good. Madam Web flopped hard. I'm not interested in that. I never actually saw Dune 1, so I doubt I'm gonna go see Dune 2. I hear it's fantastic. I'll watch it eventually, maybe when it comes to streaming as well, but I just don't have anything interesting about that. I'm still looking forward to Demian Rugna and his stuff coming out of Argentina. I hope for a Terrified 2 this year, or Aterrados 2 this year. Spanish movies are really starting to blow up too. There's a lot of good ones coming out. I reviewed earlier Tigers Are Not Afraid, and that was a very good one coming out of Mexico City, which also dealt with a different subject matter but focused on gang wars. This one is, I really can't think of any other movie that tackles this sort of mental distress and mental issues except maybe The Unborn, but that was a lot more supernatural and very, very different, and the folklore is different as well. There's a lot of in the air around here, but I definitely think that this was a really fun one that a lot of people can dissect and find some enjoyment out of. I don't personally want to watch it again, and I don't think it really deserves anything higher than an 8, but thinking back on it, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought when I was watching it, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think? Have you seen this? Do you think it could have been improved in any way? Do you have similar experiences with perinatal depression, which again, very unique subject matter for a horror movie, but it works. Anyway, let me know in the comments below. After that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a video, and that's it. Have a great day, and if you're not, have a better one. See ya.
I'm just a ghost in your stereo, the fading memory of a shipwreck in the undertow. You're just a lost song on your own, and I'm just a ghost in your stereo.